There was a second voice on my baby monitor. I used to laugh at people who said their house was haunted. That was before last winter. Before the night, I heard another woman's voice whispering to my baby through the monitor. My name's Claire. I live in upstate New York, in one of those quiet cul-de-sac neighborhoods where nothing ever happens. My husband Mark works night shifts at a hospital, so it's usually just me and our daughter Lily at home. She's 6 months old, the light of my life, the only reason I manage to get out of bed most days. That night started like any other. I fed Lily around 8:30, read her a little bedtime story, and put her down in her crib. She's been a restless sleeper since birth, so I kept the baby monitor on my nightstand. It's one of those smart ones with a camera feed, temperature sensor, and motion alerts, connected to an app on my phone. I was just starting to drift off when I heard her crying. Sharp, loud, desperate. I sat up instantly, mother's instinct, you know? But before I even got to my feet, I heard it. The second voice through the monitor. A low, gentle humming, like someone was singing softly to her. At first, I thought it was a glitch. Maybe the app picked up interference or an echo. But then the humming stopped and a whisper followed. Clear as day. Shoo, it's okay, little one. My blood ran cold. I fumbled for my phone, opened the app, and stared at the live feed. The image was grainy in night vision, but I could see Lily moving in her crib. The mobile above her was spinning slowly, too slowly to be from air movement. And then, for a split second, I saw a shape. A faint, white blur near the crib, like someone leaning over her. I screamed. By the time I ran upstairs, the room was empty. Window locked. Door still closed. Lily was crying hysterically, her blanket on the floor. I grabbed her, clutching her tight, my hands shaking. The monitor on the dresser was still on. The speaker was hissing static, but underneath it, I swear I heard a low murmur, something like breathing. I unplugged the whole thing and threw it across the room. I barely slept that night. Mark got home around 6 a.m. and thought I'd had a nightmare. I showed him the monitor footage from the app, but the clip was missing. The timeline jumped straight from 1:35 a.m. to 1:45 a.m. He said maybe the Wi-Fi dropped. Maybe the monitor auto-updated. I wanted to believe him. The next evening, I put Lily down again, but I couldn't bring myself to leave the monitor on. I set up my phone camera instead, quietly recording from a shelf, just in case. Around 2 a.m., I woke again. This time, silence. Too silent. I checked my phone. The camera feed was still recording. I tapped the screen and my heart nearly stopped. The mobile above her crib was spinning again. And then, a soft creak, like someone stepping on the floorboards. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. My room was downstairs, directly beneath hers. The sound came from above me. Then came a whisper. Not from the baby monitor this time, from the ceiling. Shoo, don't wake her. I froze in my bed. Every muscle in my body locked. Something was in that room. I grabbed my phone, hit stop recording, and ran upstairs. When I opened her door, the mobile was perfectly still. Lily was asleep. Peaceful. I didn't find anything. No intruder, no open window. But when I checked the footage the next morning, I nearly threw up. At 1:58 a.m., the mobile starts spinning. At 2 a.m., the camera autofocuses on something near the crib, a faint outline of a woman. Not distinct, but enough to see hair, shoulders, arms. She bends down, reaching toward Lily, and the recording glitches. The screen fills with static. Then the image returns. The woman is gone. The mobile slowly stops spinning. But right before the video ends, for just one frame, I caught something behind the crib. A handprint on the wall. Dark, smudged, too large to be mine. Mark still said it must be a shadow, a glitch. I stopped arguing. That evening, I called the previous owners. They'd moved out just 6 months before we bought the house. A woman answered, hesitant, polite. When I mentioned strange things happening in the nursery, she went quiet. Then she asked, "You didn't put her room at the end of the hallway, did you? The one with the big window?" "Yes," I said slowly. She whispered, "That was our daughter's room. She died there. Crib accident. We sold the house right after." I hung up. That night, I didn't sleep at all. At 3 a.m., Lily started crying again. I didn't even bother checking the monitor. I ran straight upstairs. When I opened the door, the air inside felt freezing cold, like a walk-in freezer. My breath came out in white mist. The mobile wasn't moving this time, but the handprint on the wall was gone. In its place was a new one, smaller, about the size of Lily's hand. I called my mother the next morning, begging her to take us in for a while. We left that afternoon. Before leaving, I packed Lily's things, her toys, clothes, blankets. When I lifted her crib mattress, something fluttered out from underneath. A photograph. Old, black and white. A baby girl, wrapped in the same blanket I used for Lily. On the back, someone had written in faded ink, "Shoo, it's okay, little one." We moved out 2 weeks later. I don't talk about it much anymore, but sometimes when I use the baby monitor at my mom's house, I still hear faint static, and under it, a sound that chills me to the bone. A gentle humming. A mother's lullaby, coming from nowhere. My neighbor hasn't aged in 30 years. I've lived in the same apartment building in Chicago for almost my entire life, 28 years, give or take. It's one of those older brick complexes with narrow hallways, peeling wallpaper, and a permanent smell of dust and coffee. Most of the tenants come and go, but a few of us have stuck around long enough to recognize every creak in the floorboards. And then there's Mrs. Lang. She lives in apartment 4B, right across the hall from mine. Sweet, soft-spoken woman, always in her floral dresses, always feeding the stray cats that linger around the dumpster out back. Everyone in the building knows her. She's like a piece of furniture that's always been here. But recently, I realized something that doesn't make sense. Mrs. Lang hasn't aged. At all. The first time I met her, I was maybe 7 or 8 years old. My mom had just moved us into the building, and Mrs. Lang brought us cookies to welcome us. I remember she had snow-white hair, perfectly pinned back, and deep blue eyes. She must have been in her late 60s then. Now, nearly 3 decades later, she looks exactly the same. Same hair, same wrinkles. No more, no less. Even her voice hasn't changed. At first, I told myself I was exaggerating. Memory plays tricks, right? But a few months ago, our building manager, Dave, mentioned something that made my stomach twist. We were chatting while he was replacing a hallway light, and I said, half-jokingly, "Mrs. Lang must have found the fountain of youth." Dave stopped twisting the bulb and said, "You know, that's funny. She looked the same when I started working here back in '97. I laughed it off, until I saw his face. He wasn't joking. "She's been here since the building opened," he said. I checked the tenant records once. Same unit, same name, same emergency contact number. Though that number doesn't even connect anymore. That conversation haunted me for weeks. Then, during a minor renovation last winter, they tore down some old wall panels in the lobby and found a bunch of framed photographs from the 1990s, the original opening ceremony of the building. Curious, I looked through them, and there she was, Mrs. Lang, standing in front of the entrance, smiling, holding a black cat in her arms. Her floral dress was identical to the one she wore last week, but the date on the photo read June 1991. I felt this cold ripple of confusion. Maybe she was the daughter of the original Mrs. Lang? Maybe it was a family name? But when I compared the face, no, it was her. The same eyes, same faint smile. That night I knocked on her door. It took a while for her to open. I could hear locks being undone one after another. Finally, the door creaked open a few inches and she peeked out. "Hello, dear," she said in that soft, airy tone of hers. "Is everything all right?" "Yeah. I just wanted to ask, how long have you lived here?" Her smile faltered just a bit. "Oh, quite a while. I don't keep track anymore. Why do you ask?" I hesitated. "I saw an old photo downstairs. From the building opening. You were in it." She didn't blink. Didn't even look surprised. Then she said something that still rings in my head. "You shouldn't dig through the past, dear. You won't like what you find." And then, without another word, she shut the door. After that, things got strange. Every night around 2 or 3 a.m., I'd hear faint meowing through the vents, soft at first, then louder. I figured it was the stray she fed, but the sound came from inside the building. Once, when I was taking out my trash, I saw her at the dumpster, whispering softly to one of the cats. It was a black one just like the one in the photo. But when she saw me, she froze. The cat hissed and bolted. She gave me this long, tired look. "They don't like being watched," she murmured before heading inside. Later that night, I saw her window light flicker. For a moment, I could have sworn I saw shadows moving, multiple shapes, though she lived alone. A few days later, I bumped into Dave again and told him about the photo. He frowned and went to check the building archive. He's the kind of guy who loves records. A few hours later, he texted me a picture of a scanned document. It was an old tenant form. Name, Eleanor Lang. Move-in date, June 12, 1991. Date of birth, March 14, 1912. That would make her 113 years old. The next day I knocked again. No answer. The door was locked, but the smell in the hallway was off, like sour milk and wet fur. That smell got worse over the next few days. Other tenants complained about it too. Eventually, Dave said he'd check it out. He used his master key to open her door while I waited nearby. I heard him gag almost immediately. Then he came back into the hall, pale as chalk. "Call the police," he whispered. The cops showed up about 20 minutes later. They went inside, came out with serious faces, and told everyone to stay back. When they finally let Dave back in to collect her cat food bowls and such, he said something I can't forget. "She wasn't there," he told me. "No sign of her. But there were bones in the kitchen. Dozens of them. Not cat bones either, too big." He quit his job 2 days later. The unit's been sealed since then. No one's moved in. Last week, though, I saw something that made my blood run cold. I was walking home from work, and as I passed by the side of the building, I noticed someone kneeling near the dumpster, scattering bits of food. She was wearing a floral dress, her hair pinned back. I froze, my breath catching. She turned slightly, and even from across the lot, under that dim yellow streetlight, I saw her face. Mrs. Lang. Identical. Not a day older. She looked right at me, smiled faintly, and whispered something I couldn't hear. Then, slowly, she raised her hand and made a quiet shushing gesture. I blinked and she was gone. Just like that. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about what she'd said to me weeks before. "You shouldn't dig through the past, dear. You won't like what you find." I did dig. And now, sometimes I hear the meowing again, from the vents. Only it doesn't sound like cats anymore. It's lower, guttural, almost like voices trying to mimic meows. And sometimes, just before I fall asleep, I hear that same whisper, a frail, feminine voice that sounds like it's coming from just outside my door. "Don't worry, dear. You won't age either, if you stay." I work night security at a hospital, and there's a room that doesn't exist. Hospitals are strange places at night. Too quiet, too empty. If you've ever walked those hallways when the fluorescent lights buzz and every sound echoes forever, you'll understand the kind of silence that makes your skin crawl. I've been a night security guard at St. Hillcrest Medical Center for the past 6 years. It's a mid-sized hospital built in the late 70s with a few modern wings tacked on over the decades. One of those is the East Psychiatric Wing, which has been partially closed since 2015 after a fire incident during renovations. Most nights are the same. I do my rounds, check doors, stare at monitors, and fight to stay awake between 2 and 4 a.m. But a few months ago, something happened that still keeps me awake long after my shift ends. I found a room that shouldn't exist. It was a Wednesday, middle of my shift, maybe around 2:15 a.m. I was doing my usual patrol of the East Wing, the abandoned section. The lights there flicker, and the air always feels colder, like the AC stuck on full blast. Most of it's sealed off with plastic tarps and under renovation signs. I walk it anyway. Habit. That night, as I turned the corner past the nurse's station, I noticed something odd. A door. Not just any door, a brand new one. Smooth white paint, metal frame, number plate screwed above it. 136B. The thing is, there's no room 136B in this hospital. I know the layout by heart. Room 136 leads straight into a storage closet, then a solid wall. I stopped. My radio crackled faintly, but no one was talking. The hallway was silent except for the low hum of the lights. Against my better judgment, I tried the handle. It turned easily. The room inside looked pristine. Not dusty or abandoned like the rest of the wing, freshly cleaned. The air smelled like disinfectant, sharp and cold. There was a hospital bed, neatly made, with a single pillow and white sheets. A monitor sat beside it, powered on, the green line pulsing steadily. For a second, I thought maybe maintenance finally reopened part of the wing without telling us. But the monitor made no sense. It was showing a flatline signal. I stepped closer. On the screen, faintly, a patient name flickered. Hughes Daniel, November 9th, 2015. That date hit me hard. November 9th, 2015. The same date the renovation fire happened. I backed up slowly, heart pounding. My radio hissed again, this time with static so loud it hurt. Then I heard it. A voice, whispering through the static. Room 136. B. I dropped the radio and ran. Back at the security office, I tried to convince myself it was exhaustion. Maybe I'd stumbled into an old maintenance test room. Maybe the fire date was a coincidence. Still, I checked the digital floor maps on our system. Nothing. There was no record of a 136B. The sequence jumped straight from 136 to 137. I even called my supervisor, Jenkins. He sounded half asleep and irritated. Probably just a mislabeled room, he said. Ignore it and finish your round. So I did. I finished my shift. But when I walked back past that same hallway at dawn, the door was gone. Not locked, gone. Just a smooth, painted wall where it had been hours before. For the next week, I tried not to think about it. But the following Monday, I found something on my desk that made me feel sick. A printed photo, grainy and low-res, showing the east hallway. The timestamp in the corner matched the night I'd seen the door. And there it was, room 136B, clear as day. Standing in front of it was me. I don't remember anyone taking that photo. I showed it to Jenkins, but he brushed it off. Someone's pranking you, he said. So I checked the camera feeds myself. The footage from that night was corrupted, black screen between 2:10 and 2:25 a.m. That's when I started digging deeper. Through some archived hospital records, I found a report about the 2015 fire. It started in the psychiatric unit, room 136. A patient named Daniel Hughes set his bedsheet on fire. The flames spread fast and he died before they could reach him. His body was found still in the bed. The report mentioned renovations were planned to expand the hallway to add another room numbered 136B, but the project was abandoned after the fire. That's when I realized the door I saw shouldn't just not exist. It never got built. The next night, I told myself I'd prove it. I brought a small body cam and went back to the east wing. The place was dead quiet. My flashlight beam danced over the faded yellow walls, the plastic sheets hanging limp like ghosts. And then, halfway down the hall, I saw it again. The door. Perfect, new, clean. Room 136B. My heart was pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. I reached for the handle, cold metal, damp with condensation. I opened it. Inside, the room was identical to before. The bed, the monitor, everything. Except this time, there was someone in the bed. A man. Skin pale as paper, eyes half open, unmoving. The monitor beeped softly, steady rhythm. I stepped closer, whispering, "Sir?" The man's eyes snapped fully open. And then every light in the room shut off at once. Pitch black. The monitor screamed with a continuous tone, flatline. My body cam flickered and went dead. I fumbled backward, trying to find the door handle, but it was gone. My hand slid against smooth wall. Then the voice came again. Hoarse, close to my ear. "You shouldn't have opened the door." When the lights came back on, I was lying in the hallway outside. Door gone. No sign of 136B. I checked the time, 3:12 a.m. I'd lost nearly an hour. I went straight to the office and watched the body cam footage. It recorded fine until I opened the door. Then static. The last clear frame before it cut out showed a man in the bed, face turned directly toward the camera, eyes open, smiling faintly. The timestamp of the clip? November 9th, 2021. Exactly 6 years after the fire. I quit 2 days later. Jenkins didn't believe a word of it, but when he went to check the East Wing himself, he didn't come back right away. When he finally did, he looked pale, sweaty, and refused to speak. The next morning, he resigned. I heard through a friend that the hospital sealed off the entire East Corridor for good after that. They're planning to demolish it next year. But here's the thing that keeps me up at night. Last week, I got an email from an unknown address. No message, no subject, just an attachment. A photo. Grainy. Black and white. It shows a hospital room, empty except for a single bed. The number plate above the door reads 136C. I found my missing friend on a live stream. My best friend Tyler disappeared in 2019. No fight, no note, no sign of struggle. Just gone. He was the kind of guy who loved adventure. Hiking, camping, exploring abandoned places. He'd always say things like, "The world's too big to waste time being safe." I used to think it was charming until the night it got him killed. Or at least, I thought he was dead. Until last month when I saw him alive, on a random YouTube livestream. Back in 2019, Tyler convinced 3 of us, me, his girlfriend Marissa, and our buddy Eric, to go camping in Oregon's Mount Hood Forest. We were college kids, stupid, chasing thrills. On the second night, Tyler wandered off with his camera after sunset. Said he wanted to get some creepy night footage for his channel. He never came back. We searched all night, then the next day, then called the park rangers. They found his camera near a ravine, battery dead, lens cracked. The last footage showed him walking deeper into the trees, laughing, flashlight swinging wildly. Then the screen glitched and cut off. That was it. No body. No sign of him. His parents held a memorial that spring. Marissa moved away. Eric stopped talking to me entirely, and I tried to move on. Fast forward to 2024. One night I couldn't sleep, just scrolling aimlessly through YouTube. I landed on a small channel streaming live night exploration in the woods. The title read, "Hunting for Lost Campgrounds, live from Oregon." I don't know why I clicked. Probably because of the name, it reminded me of him. The stream was grainy, filmed on a headlamp camera. You could hear the wind howling through the mic, see the shaky beam of light scanning through thick trees. The guy's voice was calm, steady, narrating like he'd done this before. About 22 minutes in, he panned his light across a clearing. For half a second, the beam hit something. A man, standing behind a tree. His face half-lit, pale, eyes wide. His clothes were filthy, torn. But it was his face that froze me. It was Tyler. Same scar on his cheek from when we wiped out skateboarding senior year. Same stupid half-smirk. He wasn't just standing there. He was staring directly into the camera. The streamer didn't even notice. He kept talking, moving on. But the chat exploded. "WTF, was that behind you? Yo, dude, someone's watching. Go back, there's a man there." I rewound the clip 3 times. Each time that same image, Tyler, motionless, staring. At first, I told myself maybe it was a look-alike. But that scar, it was him. My heart was hammering. I grabbed a screenshot and zoomed in. The eyes looked sunken but alive. Terrified. I tried typing in the chat, asking where the stream was filmed exactly. No response. I looked at the username, TrailWatcherLIV. The channel was small. Maybe 800 subscribers, no description, no links. The stream went on another 40 minutes. Nothing else strange happened. But at the 59-minute mark, right before the feed cut out, I heard something faint in the background behind the streamer's voice. Someone whispering, "Help me." The next morning, I went full detective mode. I replayed the stream, downloaded it before it could disappear, and ran an IP trace through a tool Eric had once used for gaming servers. It was a rough match, but the signal pointed to the same section of Mount Hood Forest where we lost Tyler 5 years ago. I sent the video and location to the police. They said they'd review it, but didn't sound convinced. That night, I went back to the channel. It was gone. Deleted, every video, every trace. The name TrailWatcherLIV didn't exist anymore. For a few nights, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept replaying that frame, his face, his eyes. I wondered if he'd been living out there somehow. Maybe injured. Maybe lost. Maybe trapped. Then a week later, I got an email. No subject line, no message. Just a link. It led to another live stream. No channel name, no comments, no chat. Just the same dark forest. The camera shook violently like someone was running. The person filming was breathing hard. You could hear twigs snapping. Then faintly voices. 2 men arguing. And a third voice, weaker, rasping. Please, let me go. The camera turned, and there he was again. Tyler. He was tied to a tree this time. His face gaunt, lips cracked, but unmistakably him. He looked right at the camera. Please, he said. Tell my parents I'm still. The screen went black. I stared at the frozen buffer circle for almost 5 minutes before realizing my own reflection was trembling in the monitor. When the video came back, it wasn't the forest anymore. It was a close-up shot of a face. Not Tyler's. Mine. A still frame from one of my old social media posts. Then the stream ended. I called the police again. They said they couldn't trace the link because it had already expired. When I showed them the screenshots, they looked unsettled. One of them said quietly, "You should probably stay offline for a while." 2 days later, my front doorbell rang. When I checked my camera, there was no one there. But sitting on the porch was a small black SD card inside an envelope. No note, just the card. Against my better judgment, I plugged it into my laptop. Inside was one video file. Length, 1 minute, 12 seconds. It started with static. Then the image came into focus, the forest clearing again. The camera slowly panned down, showing a mound of dirt. Someone had carved into it with a stick. Here. Then the camera tilted up, to a tree. Something was nailed to it. A torn piece of cloth. I recognized it instantly, Tyler's old camping shirt. The one he wore the night he disappeared. And pinned just beneath it was a Polaroid photo. The picture showed me asleep in my bed. I called the cops again. They searched the woods. They found the mound exactly as shown. Beneath it were human remains, not enough to identify right away. When the detective came by later, his expression was grim. He told me the coroner had run a preliminary dental comparison. The remains were not Tyler's. They belonged to Eric, my other friend, the one who stopped talking to me after Tyler vanished. I asked if they found anything else. The detective hesitated, then said, "We found a phone nearby. Burnt, but still partially intact." He opened a plastic evidence bag. Inside was a melted phone case with a cracked camera lens, the same brand Tyler used. When they extracted the memory chip, one file remained. A short video recorded years ago. It showed Tyler holding his phone out, grinning at the camera. "Exploring the trail alone," he said, panting. "I think I found an old cabin up ahead." He stopped, turned around. His face changed. Then he whispered, "Wait, who's filming me?" The video ended there. It's been a month since all this happened. The cops say they're still investigating, but I know they won't find much. The SD card, the photo of me sleeping, I destroyed them both. But sometimes at night, my phone buzzes with no caller ID. When I answer, there's only static and a faint voice beneath it. Sounds like him. "Please, tell them I'm still here." Something was living under our cabin. When I was 19, my uncle offered me a job watching over his mountain cabin for the summer. He said it'd be easy money, just keep it clean, restock supplies, and make sure no trespassers wandered in. The cabin sat deep in the woods of northern Montana, about an hour from the nearest gas station. No cell signal, no Wi-Fi, just trees and silence. I thought it'd be peaceful. It wasn't. The first few days were fine. I spent my time chopping wood, swimming in the nearby creek, and reading old books by the fireplace. But by the 5th night, something changed. It started with the scratching. At first, it was faint, like mice in the walls. But this was louder, slower. It came from beneath the cabin, right under the floorboards near the living room. I banged the floor with a broom handle, expecting whatever it was to scatter. The noise stopped. Then about 10 minutes later, it started again. This time it was closer, right under the couch where I was sitting. The next morning, I crawled under the cabin to look. It was dark and damp, with maybe 3 feet of crawl space. Nothing but dirt, cobwebs, and the occasional root pushing through the soil. No signs of animals. But I did notice something odd. A section of earth near the back corner looked disturbed, like it had been dug up and refilled. I brushed it off as raccoons or a fox. Still, that night I heard it again, scratching. But now there was something else, a muffled thump like a hand pressing against wood. I told myself it was the wind. I even tried sleeping with earplugs. Didn't help. Because at 3:17 a.m. I woke up to the sound of whispering. It was coming from the vent near the floor. A voice, hoarse, slow, almost like someone trying to breathe words rather than speak them. "Help me." I froze. The air around me felt heavier, like the whole cabin was holding its breath. "Who's there?" I said, voice cracking. No answer. Just the faint sound of movement under the floor, retreating into the dark. I didn't sleep again that night. The next morning, I called my uncle using the landline phone in the kitchen. He laughed it off. "Probably a badger or something," he said. "They dig under there sometimes." But when I told him about the voice, his tone shifted. "Wait," he said. "What did it say?" I told him. There was silence on the other end for a few seconds. Then he muttered, "Just stay inside at night. And don't go under there again." He hung up before I could ask why. That night, I locked every window and door. I left the living room light on and sat with a kitchen knife in my hand. Around midnight, the scratching started again. But this time it wasn't under me, it was at the back door. Soft, deliberate. Then a voice. "Let me in." It was quiet, almost polite. A man's voice. I didn't move. "Please," the voice said again. "It's cold out here." I peered through the window, but it was pitch black outside. No movement, no flashlight, nothing. Then, as my eyes adjusted, I saw something, a faint shape crouched near the bottom of the doorframe. Too low to be standing. Too still to be human. I grabbed my uncle's old rifle from the mantel and shouted, "Leave now. I'm armed." Silence. Then 3 slow knocks on the wood. Each one deep, echoing wrong. After the third knock, the sound stopped completely. When I opened the door at sunrise, there were handprints in the dirt. Small, thin hands, child-sized. But the fingers were too long. 2 days later, my uncle drove up to check on me. I told him everything. He didn't laugh this time. He just rubbed his temples and said quietly, "I should have filled it in years ago." "What?" I asked. He sighed. "That crawl space. There's an old well under there. My father, your grandfather, used it back in the day. One winter, a drifter showed up at the cabin. Asked for food. My dad let him stay the night. Next morning, he was gone. So was a few tools." I frowned. "And?" He hesitated. "A week later, they found him down in that well. Broke his neck climbing out, apparently. My dad covered it, built the cabin right on top. Said it was safer that way." He looked at me hard. "If you hear anything else, don't talk back." Then he left. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. A body buried beneath me all this time. I don't know what compelled me, fear, curiosity, maybe both. But around 2 a.m., I grabbed a flashlight and opened the hatch under the kitchen rug that led to the crawl space. The air that rushed up smelled like rot and cold metal. I slid down carefully, my light shaking as I crawled forward. The dirt was damp beneath my palms. Then I reached that disturbed patch of ground again. The soil there looked fresher than before, like something had been digging up from underneath. My flashlight flickered, and for half a second I saw it. A hand, pale and thin, reaching up from the dirt. The fingers twitched once. I scrambled backward, banging my head on the beams as I crawled out, slamming the hatch shut and dragging the fridge over it. I stayed up until dawn, shaking. The next morning, I was ready to leave. I packed my bags, started the truck, but it wouldn't start. Battery dead. I swore, tried again. Nothing. Then, from the porch, I heard that voice again, whispering through the floor vent. "Don't leave me here." I grabbed the rifle again and backed toward the door. Then came a sound from under the rug. Thump, thump. Like fists pounding from below. The fridge started to rattle. I ran outside, jumped into the truck again, and slammed the key until the engine finally coughed to life. As I pulled away, I looked in the rearview mirror. The front door of the cabin was wide open, and something was crawling out. It was fast, too fast to be human. Crawling on all fours, skin gray like old wood, its face stretched and hollow. Its mouth opened wider than I thought possible, and I swear I heard words, Barely a whisper over the engine noise. You took my place. I didn't stop driving until I hit the highway. When I told my uncle, he didn't seem surprised. He just said, "You did the right thing leaving. That land, it doesn't let go of what's buried under it." He sold the property 2 months later. The new owner? A young couple with a baby. I saw their Instagram post last week, smiling in front of the cabin holding their newborn. But in the last picture, if you zoom in near the vent by the floor, you can see a face watching them. Which story kept you awake? Comment below.